Welcome to the AI Security Update, hosted by Dr. Anmol Agarwal, where we break down the latest in AI and security with experts on the front lines, focused on what you need to know without the hype. Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. Today, I'm so excited to introduce our guest, Phillip Wylie. You might have met Phillip at many of the cybersecurity events, but Phillip, can you please introduce yourself for our audience?
Sure. So I'm Phillip Wylie. I've been in cybersecurity this January, made over 22 years. 6 years prior to that, I worked in IT as a system administrator. Most of my career has been spent on the offensive security side. I used to be an adjunct instructor at Dallas College, taught pen testing, web app pen testing, and still continue to teach workshops at conferences and speak at conferences.
Yeah, Phillip, you have so much experience with AI pen testing. Um, so you're coming from offensive security pen testing background, and you also wrote a book, I believe. Can you remind us what it's called?
Yes, the pen tester blueprint. It's about starting a career in pen testing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of based on my experience at Dallas College and actually a lecture that I gave the class each semester, which I turned into a conference talk, which eventually became a book.
Okay. Yeah. So I also teach now. So it's really useful to take what you're teaching and then translate it to people who aren't in our field or to help them get started. So I think that's really great. But Philip, one question I have for you is based on your experience as a pen tester, as someone in the offensive security space, what are some of the challenges you see in AI security right now?
I think a lot of it is like adopting any new technologies. People don't understand the security of it and they're too excited about getting it implemented. The CEO or the CISO or whatever management person really wants these technologies in place. Sometimes they're not put in securely. And in these cases, we really need to make sure that whatever IT professionals or security professionals that are implementing this get some sort of training on AI and AI security, because that's usually what happens is people put out these technologies without having really backgrounds in those areas, and especially security around those technologies.
Yeah, great point. I think we need to educate everyone about AI security and not just like, here's a new tool, but also here's how you actually use the tool, and here are the concepts you need to know. So, Philip,
And
go ahead.
and if I can add an additional comment, I think it's really especially important to train the people that are going to be using AI so they could use it more securely, because a lot of technologies that are very helpful and useful, if you haven't implemented internally, people are going to use those technologies. Even if you do implement AI internally, you need to really work with those users to show them how to use it securely and the proper ways to use AI and what kind of data they're going to put into it. Because if it's a frontier AI, publicly facing AI, you really want to be careful what you're putting into it. So I think a good step there is to go ahead and start training people on it. We kind of missed the boat years ago with security awareness. There was so many years people were using IT tools and all this, and they didn't really have any basic understanding of cybersecurity, and we implemented that. So I think we really need to implement training on AI and even in the security awareness to show people how to use AI securely.
Yeah, great point. I agree. We need training. I think with security awareness, the challenge I've seen is it's really localized to our community. So those of us in cybersecurity, but then people outside of cybersecurity, they don't really recognize why do you need certain things? Like, why do you need security? I think the same thing we're seeing with AI security is we have a specialized skill set of AI security, but then where do other people use it? Or how are they impacted? So, Philip, if you can walk through as a pen tester, what are some ways as a pen tester would you use certain tools? And can you elaborate on AI being used to help pen testing?
Yes, so it's kind of interesting when you mention AI for pen testing. There's actually tools out there that automate traditional pen testing and use AI, and then there's some cases where you're using tools to test AI. So as far as using the tools and stuff, if you're wanting to learn to pen test AI or use that, then there's some classes out there on that. Jason Haddix offers some really good classes on AI pen testing. So I think it's just a matter of back to education, learning how to properly use the tools and see some of the folks that have been doing it to get a better understanding because there's not as much content readily available for people that want to test AI or using AI to test traditional IT technologies using AI. So going out and finding back to the training, you just have to go out and get the proper training because it's going to help you get up to speed quicker and then prevent you from causing any harm. Because you look at some of these tools, and one of the things I was talking with someone recently in pen testing, there was this tool called Armitage that was kind of a GUI, a graphic front end for Metasploit. And they had like a Hail Mary feature, which it would try every single attack against those systems possible to gain a foothold. So just the power of that, it took some skill to be able to set it up and get initial configuration, but there was so much power there that you didn't have to be that skilled. So we have to kind of be careful with AI because you can have some very, very bad implications if you don't know what you're doing, and you could cause a lot of damage in your environment, cause outages and stuff, and so you really want to be careful.
Yeah, great point with that. I think we see it on both sides, right? So using AI to help you with pen testing, like you mentioned, Philip, that's a big issue sometimes because same thing with vibe coding. We see it that people just rely on the AI tool and then they don't know what's going to happen when their AI tool broke or it gave you an incorrect result. And then it might cause the outages like you're mentioning. Can you walk through now this is something maybe you won't be able to answer, but we'll try. So can you just
Okay.
walk through um, how, as a pen tester, you would assess a system or assess something that you were to pen test, and then think about maybe how AI could augment the traditional pen test methodology?
Sure. When you start out, you're doing like your reconnaissance, where you start doing some uh, vulnerability scans, port and service scans to try to identify vulnerable services. And then you would go look and see if there's any exploits out there for that. And in some cases, I've seen people use AI to test something and say, can you identify anything that could be vulnerable in the system to help or either create scripts that you could use that would create some kind of automation. So you may have several different tools you have to run in this process. And maybe you could go into like AI, almost like you would vibe coding, and create a script that would kind of chain together some different types of tools. That way it just kind of helps make it a little more seamless and easier to do your job. And so one of the things that I see the value of AI is to take some of the boring tasks and try to automate those because one of the things that's really super boring as pen testers is when it comes to SSL or TLS related vulnerabilities. You have to go validate all those vulnerabilities to make sure they're actually true vulnerabilities that you may have discovered with a vulnerability scanner. And so maybe there's ways you could leverage AI to do some of those more redundant, boring tasks using AI. A lot of the people on my team that I work with they spend a lot of time in AI creating, you know, custom scripts and stuff to do the pen testing with.
Yeah, that's interesting using AI to create the scripts because we're seeing this a lot. I had someone else on my show, and he said he basically used AI to conduct an OSINT or open source investigation. So, what he was doing was he used AI to basically get profiles of different people. And then from that, he was able to create an image or a composite image for social engineering. So, I think like you're mentioning, AI can be a useful tool, but then at the same time, we need to learn how to leverage it just as a tool, but it shouldn't replace your fundamental knowledge or experience.
I think that's a very important part there is just learning AI to better leverage it. Because if you really don't know much about AI, you're not really going to be able to get as much out of it. Because just like you see with prompt engineering, the better information you give it and the more context, more accurate context, the better output.
Right, exactly. So understanding how these models work, it's very helpful. Philip, my next question for you is this field is rapidly evolving. You know, every day it seems like there's a new development in AI or in cybersecurity. Based on everything you've seen and what you've seen on the news, is there a particular current event that stands out to you as something that you think the audience should be aware of and be monitoring right now?
That's a good question. Uh, Actually, I can't really think of anything that really stands out. Some of the things I can see where people make mistakes is putting sensitive information within AI, instead of just taking some output from another application, paste it in AI and not removing the sensitive information when it's a public AI. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see. I think you have to be really careful with any kind of automation, any of these tools that you use to automate your daily tasks and everything. Be careful about giving it access because if it's got access to your email and stuff. It's got access to maybe possibly other apps within your organization. It can get access to data that you really don't want it to get access to.
Yeah, great point. There is a current event that I heard about. Maybe you heard about it and then we can elaborate on it. There was this new attack from Anthropic. So Anthropic, they have their powerful bot. Forget what it's called, but there were over 300 misconfigured files within this um, chat bot or AI bot. But in this case, it wasn't a traditional like AI security attack. It was just a misconfiguration. Have you heard about that headline?
That one is not familiar, but it's kind of a reoccurring thing that we've heard in cybersecurity for many years. Some of the biggest vulnerabilities are misconfigurations, because usually with any kind of application or system, misconfigurations, weak passwords or default credentials, outdated, unpatched systems are usually some of the main places where a threat actor can get a foothold.
Yeah, great comprehensive list. And I think even though the headlines might change or the system or the company being attacked might change, some of the same fundamentals apply. And Philip, you're coming back from the RSA conference. So we're recording this the Monday after RSA. Just based on your experience at RSA conference, what are some takeaways from that conference?
Yeah, kind of some of my observations are more people are adding AI to their products, and there's more products out there that are AI based. So you see a lot more of that. Kind of the maturity of some of what the offerings are. You're seeing some of the technologies out there where people are using skills and MCPs and stuff when a lot of stuff in previous years was more, chatbot related. So they're starting to take advantage of some of these newer technologies that are out there that are AI based and the AI models and stuff.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of new AI tools, but then how do we separate the marketing and the hype from actual tools that will help you?
Yeah, that's kind of tough. But one of the things I would say that's even more scary about the tools when you consider vibe coding. Before, if you're an individual, you say, "Hey, I'm gonna make this security tool," and you try to write it, you're gonna have a difficult time. You're gonna have to learn how to code and reference a lot of stuff, and to come out with a minimal viable product is gonna be very close to impossible. Now with vibe coding, people can put that out, and people can develop these products without having any kind of security background or not really a development background. So this is really kind of opening us up for vulnerabilities and possibly being exploited because when you take some people with a development background, they don't understand the security. That's one thing, but then you get someone that really doesn't know how to code properly and they're creating some of these products And, I haven't witnessed this firsthand, but someone could very well create some product that's supposed to be a security product to do something. It looks great, looks like it's doing what it should be doing, but you don't know what information it's going to expose. Are they using a public facing model, or is it full of bugs? You mentioned earlier misconfigurations could have misconfigurations, weak credentials, any number of vulnerabilities that could make the customer using that at risk.
Yeah, great point. And I think what we've seen, right, you're coming from the cybersecurity background, so you're looking at vibe coding as security risk. But then at the same time, the positives of AI is that it can open up so many doors for people who otherwise could not enter the field or who could not enter technology fields. So it's providing this ability for anyone to just use AI to create a business idea or to create a product for them. So I think there are the security risks we need to be aware of and cautious about, but also it opens up so many doors.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, it opens up doors. You just have to be kind of careful with it. And it's kind of interesting because I've heard someone mention last year that they predict that there will be a one person company that'll be $1 billion company operated by one person. And I actually interviewed someone for one of the podcasts I host, Simply Offensive. I interviewed Nicholas Shalon today, and he used to be the software or the chief software officer for the U.S. Air Force and Space Force, and he's got a book he's coming out on how people can create all these agents and start these businesses. And so one of the things he did is his own self experimentation. Although he's got a software background, he replaced 40 engineers with AI agents. So for like $200 a day, he replaced millions of dollars worth of expenses each year by using AI agents. And one of the things he's doing is he's really thinking about the education for his daughters, because he's got a 7-year-old daughter and 2 5-year-old daughters. And he's really worried about when they get older, what can they do for a living? So it's a good thing that they have him for a father, because he's able to think about this stuff in the future, kind of lead them in the right direction education wise to be kind of future proof. Because in the future, you're really going to have to understand and know how to use AI, because uh, one of my favorite quotes has been, "You won't be replaced by AI, but you'll be replaced by someone that uses AI."
Wow, that's such an impressive company that he's just replacing all these employees with AI agents. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, how does he monitor these AI agents to make sure that they are functioning as intended? Did he go into
Yeah,
that?
he didn't go into that, but one of the things he did mention about these AI bots, he was saying these AI bots are generating code and they're also testing the code. So they are performing vulnerability testing against the code it's writing, but monitoring and all this, I'm not really sure the details, but the guy has built and sold a company for like $200 million. So he understands the software piece of it, but he really didn't go into any details of if they're monitoring it or not. But that would be interesting to know what
Yeah,
all
that
they're doing
would
in the
be.
background to monitor that.
Yeah, because it is good that he's testing the code. And so then I'm just putting my AI researcher hat on, right? So if you generate the code with an AI model and then you test the code, that same code with an AI model, ideally you want to use different ways to test the code than the ways you use to generate the code. Because we see this with AI, right? It can be very confident in what it generates and what it gives you. And it might test its own code and say, "Oh, I'm 100% okay." And this is something we've seen in the research field, is this idea of alignment, where it's AI is basically saying, "I'm 100% okay, everything's fine, trust me," type answer. And then you can't actually trust that AI model. So ideally, if you're testing a model, then you would have additional AI models or different kinds of algorithms to test that code.
Yeah, so in that instance, you would probably want like a model built specifically for doing security assessments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's a really interesting company idea, and it seems like he's already very successful in that idea.
Yeah, I think he's in a position he really doesn't have to worry about working, but these some of these people that are serial entrepreneurs, they just keep going and keep innovating. So it'd be really interesting to see because he's doing a book launch and he's even showing he's going to have some videos and content on how to do this stuff. And so his book's coming out around August.
Oh, okay, interesting. So Philip, we talked about, you won't be replaced by AI, but you'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use it. And I know you've done a lot of work in the community about encouraging people to build skills for their careers. So just based on your experience as a pen tester, um, in in the offensive security side first, what are some skills or courses that you recommend that people learn from to build their careers in this field?
Yeah, as far as if someone's already got the offensive security background, I would look into some of the courses that Jason Haddix has. There's some other offensive security recently has come out with an AI pen testing course. So something like that, as well as Try Hack Me, not Try Hack Me, but Hack the Box has some AI pen testing related content. So I would focus on that and learning how to just use AI in general, these different models, learn how to do automation, whether it's creating agents or skills. And it's really interesting to see some of these other tools adding skills because actually someone from the community, his hacker handles Rez, but it's Joseph Thacker. He actually created a skill for Kaido, the web app pen testing tool. So Kaido is a similar tool to Burp Suite, and he's creating school tools or skills built into that, as well as Burp Suite has added some AI functionality. So someone that understands AI can help build these skills and automate what they're doing. And companies are looking for ways to scale what people are doing. So I think the better you learn this and you're able to automate and improve your productivity, I think it kind of makes you a little safer than, some of the people that decide to not really advance their career and do things the old fashioned way. I think really work on automating and scale what you're doing because one of the things companies are really looking for, and I keep seeing this in articles, can't quote exactly how they're looking to scale what people are doing. And I think if you're able to use AI to do that, then you're kind of making yourself a little safer.
Yeah, great point. I think we're seeing that people are so scared about AI taking over jobs, but at the same time, AI is opening up so many doors. Philip, can you just explain some of the tools you mentioned? Because our viewers might also be people outside of our cybersecurity space. So, can you explain Metasploit, Burp Suite, any other tools you mentioned?
Sure. So Metasploit that I mentioned earlier is an exploit tool. So it's a exploit framework. It was created by HD Moore. When HD Moore created it, originally it was a way to catalog and keep up with all his exploits. But then it kind of evolved over the years and it makes exploiting or hacking systems easier. So these CVEs have these exploits written instead of having to go to a website like ExploitDB and download that and run the exploit. A lot of security researchers will create Metasploit modules, making it easier to use because some of these exploits can be a little more difficult. So it makes it a little bit easier for people to use. And Burp Suite is a web application pen testing tool. It's also has proxy functionality in it, which means that you're able to intercept the traffic going to and from the website, and you're able to tamper it. You're able to run vulnerability scans against it. You're able to. There's some cases where if you're pen testing something, you can change just a few characters, and it may help you find another directory using like directory traversal. And so yeah, so it's a way to help people uh, test things more easily than doing it the manual way, and they're also starting to add AI to it to make it even easier, as well as Kaido that I mentioned earlier. It's a similar tool competing in the same area, but they were kind of probably one of the first web app pen testing tools to adopt AI. And one of the things about Kaido is they're really involved in the cybersecurity community, because actually one of the co-founders, Emil, I was able to talk to him at RSA, and they work really close with the bug hunting and pen testing community. So they get a lot of ideas and feedback, as well as their product being tested by the community.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation because we have people who might just be interested in what is AI or what is security. But sometimes what we do is we talk in our way of thinking or our way of, using these tools and acronyms. And then I find that people outside of our field are like, wait, what is happening? What are they talking about? So I think that explanation is really helpful. So Philip, one other question I have is based on everything we talked about, AI in pen testing, what is an everyday scenario that you can think of that explains a concept? So, like, for example, like someone just going about their day, when would they come across something like pen testing or explain how a pen test works and how AI might be used to augment it? So, for example, when you're going to an airport, how would that technology be used? Or when someone is logging into a website, how can they ensure if it's, safe or not?
Yeah, that's if someone's logging in a website, that's going to be pretty difficult. So one of the things you want to do is always make sure you got a secure connection, and you can check that in your address bar to see if it's using SSL or TLS for a secure connection. And typically nowadays, that's not as big of a problem, because you go to the website and you'll say the site's not secure. And so you really don't want to go there unless you really know it's a secure site. If you're working for an organization and then have a properly configured certificate, then maybe it's safe. But if you're using public facing applications, you don't want to do that. And when pen tests would be done is to make sure these applications are secure, because what a penetration tester does is they find these security flaws and bugs before bad guys can find them and see if they can be exploited. And then they work with the development teams and IT teams to remediate or fix the bugs that they find during that penetration test. And a lot of some cases, if it's like a financial app, they're required by the PCI DSS, the payment card industry data security standard, that a pen test is performed against that application or the environment that holds the data for that, to make sure it's secure. So it's one of the things that sometimes compliance seems to be a pain, but then sometimes compliance is there for good reason to help protect us and our data.
Yeah, and pen testing, like Philip is mentioning, is used across different organizations, whether you realize it or not. Philip, you mentioned financial industry, but really any industry, I think, which would have some kind of software, some system, even hardware, they
Yes.
would use pen testing.
Even like your stuff on the critical infrastructure, like your water treatment facilities, this is really critical. It used to really not be a problem, but now with some of the geopolitical stuff going on, that's a way to attack another country without, you know, make a huge impact without really going as noticed. And some of these older systems really aren't patched because they don't frequently make patches. Sometimes these have been traditionally air gapped or disconnected from the network, and threat actors couldn't gain access to it. But now these are becoming more connected. Some cases, people are connecting it to make it easier to administer. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. This Your government data for your social security information is valuable. Health information, like your doctor's office and stuff, that you want to keep private. And so there's all sorts of data that we want to keep secure, and why there would need to be pen tests. Even medical products like pacemakers and insulin pumps. At one time, these things weren't really secured because no one ever thought that someone would do something bad to one of these medical devices and harm someone. And so now the FDA requires pen tests done against these products, so that way the people that are using these products are safe.
Yeah, in the hacking community, we have the black hats and the white hats or the ethical hackers, right? So there are always people who want to try new things out, want to break into things to ultimately see how things work or to cause harm. And then on the other side, we have people like Philip, ethical hackers and people that want to educate the community and to secure things. And I think we always see like anytime we think something can't be attacked, it can. We just haven't seen it happen yet.
Yeah, I think that's I've seen I forget what product it was. It was years ago, and I don't know if it was like a Bitcoin wallet that the company that made the wallet or whatever device said was unhackable. You never say something's unhackable because there's going to be someone out there, a hacker. It's a challenge, and they'll figure out how to hack it.
Yeah. It's like just saying, "Hey, come hack me." Like just by
Yeah.
saying something's unhackable. Yeah. Yeah, I had another guest on my show, Yolanda Reed, and she spent over 20 years in the US government. And she was saying at one of her job interviews, they said that the Google Pixel was absolutely secure. It's unhackable. And then she said, "No, no, it's not. It's actually not secure." And then they said, "No, it is completely secure." And then when she was actually on the watch floor, they told her that, "Yeah, it's not secure, and you were right." And they asked her for her advice on how to secure that technology. So nothing is unhackable. Even if you think like iPhone or Android, all of it can be hackable.
Yep. And at some point or another, they usually are. And our hopes as consumers is that those bugs are found quickly and resolved. And that's another prime example why we want to make sure we update our systems, our phones, and all this whenever the latest updates come out.
Right. Yeah. But then a lot of times what we've been talking about is organizations don't update their systems right away. They don't apply the patch right away. And that's what opens them up to being attacked. So, Philip, one last question I have for you is, do you recommend any resources for our audience to learn more about pen testing or about AI and security?
So for like AI related security, Jason Haddock's his courses, and there's also Joseph Thacker that goes under the Hacker Handle Res. He's got some really good stuff on AI. They both also do bug bounty related stuff. The Try Hack Me content's really good. I really enjoy that, as well as there's some really good YouTube creators out there that if you're wanting to learn more about web app pen testing, Rana Khalil has some really good videos and educational content out there, as well as Nahamsec. So Ben used to work for HackerOne, and now he's like a full time bug bounty hunter and content creator. So those are some good folks to follow.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I just want to reiterate that the cybersecurity community is so welcoming. Philip and I, we keep meeting at conferences, and we're both based in the Dallas area, but often when we meet, we're out of state actually attending
Yes.
one of these other conferences in like California or somewhere else. But definitely highly recommend networking in the community, network on LinkedIn, go to these conferences, attend meetups and just talk with the people that inspire you and that you want to learn from. And thank you so much, Philip, for your time. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just kind of reiterate what you said about networking, because that's one of the best ways to help you learn, find jobs. Because if you may be in class, say if you're in university now, you haven't graduated, make sure that you connect with all your fellow classmates, because you never can tell 5 or 10 years down the road, they may help you get your next job. So make sure to network with folks, and also to, most people do a little that work in any kind of technical field, or that's kind of their hobby. we all do research, and the more people you're connected with, it's almost like amplifying your research. You can learn so much more from other people because some of the best tips I've learned is just talking to people in hallways at conferences. So just to kind of reiterate what you said, make sure to network. And no matter how new you are in whatever field, you're not too new to share information. Because one of the things I did before I ever started teaching was I would share learning resources and blog posts and stuff that I ran across.
Yeah, great advice. And I've told my mentees the same thing is that even if you think you're really new, just sharing something you find interesting and having a conversation about something, that at least puts you out there so people know you're interested in it. So sometimes it's just about making the connections, whether it's online, virtual, or in person. So thank you so much, Philip. This concludes our episode of AI Security Update. We'll be back next time with more great conversations. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the AI Security Update. No hype, just what you need to know. Subscribe to catch the latest episodes and connect with me, Dr. Anmol, on LinkedIn for more insights from the world of AI security. We'll see you next time.